I'll talk about the use of XRF at Höganäs, Sweden AB, where I've been working now 7 years. I'll first talk about our instruments, then go to samples and preparation, and followed by calibrations and something that is warm to my heart, communication. And I work with XRF 50% of my working time, and I don't do the routine analysis. I'm responsible for making sure that the calibrations do their work, and also the method development for calibrations and sample preparation. And all of this is from my perspective. Two XRF wavelength dispersive performix installed 2012. There's a big benefit to have two. They are a backup to each other, and it also helps with troubleshooting if a sample says one thing on one and something else on the other one. We can know if it's the samples or the instruments that are messing up things. The instruments, they are at a production quality control lab run by 20 production lab technicians. They are working in shifts, 3 shifts, 24/7. And it's not only XRF they are working with a lot of other instruments as well. Particle size distribution and combustion analysis and things like that. So that is the reason that we need to keep things as simple as possible. And that's a big difference between working at university or if you're working in real life. At university, you can do a lot of interesting research, but when you're working in the real life, you have to be practical. So there are about 40 to 90 samples a day for them to analyze. So that's the instruments. Oh yeah, that's samples and preparation. So it's mainly metal powders that we produce and analyze. And we want to have them over to solid samples and a nice flat surface for the XRF to analyze. So we melt the powder with a high frequency oven, furnace, when analyzing elements not sensitive to oxidation. So the main majority of our metal powders we prepare in that way. But sometimes when we have chromium and manganese, they can oxidize when they are melted. So then we use a forging press instead. So we get forged samples. To get a nice surface for the XRF, we have a mill that I call a one-roomer. It's quite big. Most of the samples we prepare that way, but when it comes to the forging samples, we have to use a polish machine. And we are really happy we don't have too many of those samples. Then we also have some additives and a raw material that we instead of melting, because they can't be melted, we prepare them by making pressed pellets of them. So we have one calibration for solid metals of low alloy, so it's iron base 100%. We have the factory calibration for this low alloy metals, which is updated with, for us, relevant samples. It's both CRM and in-house samples. Sometimes it's impossible to get hold of a CRM with the concentrations we want. So it's a mix of it. And here is a table of analysis ranges. I was supposed to sort them alphabetically, so it looked really nice, but I think you get the picture anyway. Samples with higher concentrations need to be diluted. Yes, if we have a copper sample with 20% in it, we have to dilute it with pure iron, and then we can analyze it with this calibration as well. And then we have the calibrations for additives. So each additive or raw material is different in both content and what elements to analyze. So we have one dedicated calibration for each additive. And in this case, we have made it at site with mainly in-house samples because, yeah, it's for us. But now in the corona time, we had magnesium sulfide, and sometimes there was a very strange result. And when I came into the office and went to the machine and looked, there was one lab technician who had used the wrong calibration. The low alloy calibration had manganese in it, so he or she had run it with the low alloy calibration. Everyone was just like, big question mark, why some samples got very strange manganese results. So that's what I'm meaning, watch out for mistakes in use. Yeah, and now to communication. We had last year a training of all the lab technicians. And first I thought I'd do it like I'm doing here now. Have a whole bunch of people in front of me and I talk and they listen. But there were others, there are other instruments as well, so they had a training in. And they said that doesn't work that good. They are different, some are quiet. If you have two, even if you just have two, one will be the one who communicates and talks, and the other one will just be silent and perhaps think of something else. So I was advised to take a training one at a time, and it paid off. And it also was a good opportunity for me to get to know all the individual lab technicians, to get to know how they think, what they have for experiences and such things. So there was a couple of points that helped me with method development. So I really recommend that. And it's also made it easier to keep up the communication. It's easier for them to come to me and say, Anna, I had problem with this and that. Do you know what I can do to make it better? Or, Anna, couldn't we do it like this instead, this preparation? And, well, I think, yeah, perhaps. And it can start a thought, and that really feels good. Then production, they are the one who comes and says, we have these metal powders, and we get strangely high nickel values. Is there something wrong with your instrument? And then it's very easy we get annoyed at each other. But instead of getting annoyed, it's good to start having a discussion. Often it's the sample extraction, sample taking, that's the problem. Yeah, I start with, is it just, did it happen suddenly, or was it escalating, or is it just a few samples here and there, and have you done any changes in the production? And so far I haven't had to change the low alloy calibration. Then sales organization, they come up with a new powder, a new customer perhaps, and they say, we want to measure nickel with the to 4.01% the range. That's impossible. I really took an extreme case now. But just because of the customer is important, or you can't promise something you can't keep. The instrument is doing what it can, and you can't promise something. So that sometimes in my work they ask, oh, can we do this measurement and within this range? And then it's important to say no, if it's the case. I've really recommend that to log all changes that occur in everyday life. It might be something that we had an update of, we went to a new Windows computer, upgraded to the latest, and everything seemed to work fine, but there was one small thing that didn't work. And it took some time to discover it, so when I went back to the logbook and checked what happened during that time when it started, we changed the computer. So it's possible to track changes. And I also have started, and I tried to, I've done a lot of diary notes. And I've started to do a notebook for my own memory, and also one day when I'm not working with this anymore, I hope that it will help the one that comes after me. But really, I've discovered it's very useful for my own memory. And well, I'm not working with the hardware, but I really should have it put up the maintenance staff. It's very important that we have a good communication as well. And service technicians, I don't responsible for them, but I take the opportunity to talk to them, and I try to help them with if I've noticed something. And I think one general advice is to try to relax. I've discovered that now when I'm learning how to swim freestyle.
Yes.
And I'm trying to do this up here as well.
Yeah.
So, any questions?
So first, please. Really, thank you very much, Anna, for doing this again. This is really nice, and see what to the production. My first comment is backup instrument. Yes, it's very important, but my experience is that a backup instrument you need to use all the time.
Yeah, we do it like that. One week we use number one. The other week we use number two, and then we switch it like that.
Yeah.
So it's important.
It's
and some lab technicians, they like to work really fast, so we use both.
Yeah. Yes.
At the same time.
And this involvement, I mean, you're talking about a lot about measurement quality here, and the involvement of the personnel, and that they feel seen, which they do when you do one-to-one. Yes. I think it's a really good experience to hear from.
I thought it was stupid to start with, but
yes.